Hello, are you all ready? Hello everyone, good morning. So my name's Linda Huxley, and I know most of you know me anyway, but it's such a great pleasure to have you here after all the Swift conferences that we've attended together. So I'm with Swift Conservation Mayo, and we're hosting the conference here, and I've been in touch with so many of you over the last few months, so it's great to see you all here and extremely exciting. This location, ATU Mayo, was the start of my journey with the Swifts, and so it's such a pleasure to have you all here. And Brian Cahalan from Northern Ireland Swifts gave us guidance when we first started our project, and he said to me that Swifts will take over your life, and I thought, really? But he's right. And I just want to give, before we start, I just want to give a welcome message from Ulrich Tigges from Germany, because it was Ulrich that started off this whole journey with the Swift conferences, and sadly he can't be here, but anyway, he sends his warm regards. So I'd like to welcome now Dr. Orla Flynn, who's the president of the ATU, the Atlantic Technological University.
Gurmagat Linda, Cathaoirleach Carey, Arrow Sullivan, a Carja Galer, Fáilte Mór, Fáilte Criúil, Roimh Galer, Gudi Campus Mayo in Oscail Technoleacht and Atlantic. A warm welcome to everybody here. I know you've come from all over Europe to the beautiful Mayo campus of Atlantic Technological University. I think this is a true gathering of friends. It doesn't feel like a gathering of strangers. I think you're all deeply immersed in a shared passion for our Swift community. Delighted to welcome Minister O'Sullivan here. We often have politicians to open events and to launch events, but rarely are we privileged to have a minister who is as passionate and knowledgeable about his topic as our minister here this morning. So we're so glad to have you with us, Minister Sullivan. I just want to pay a real tribute to Linda. I was walking the town last night and I saw the Swifts and the boxes in the town, and I think Linda's a wonderful example of the difference that one person can make, no matter what the agenda. One person can make an extraordinary difference. You talked about learning from others and getting help from others, but you have really been a crusader. You have helped change so many things, not just here in Mayo, but your influence has spread to the whole county, has spread to Galway, and I'd like to think that nationally and internationally you've made an extraordinary difference. I know that in our Innovation Hub in Galway, when that extension was being built, they consulted with you about the design, and now I'm delighted that we have nesting pairs in our Innovation Hub in Galway. And even in talking to you today, ATU is a new university. We're only 4 years old. We were established following the merger of 3 former institutes of technology and St. Angela's. And many of our campuses are old, have old buildings like this one, and we have lots of opportunity to put in practice what is happening here in Mayo. But also we've set up new faculties and new schools. We have a new school of the built environment with a presence right across the university. And I am going to, this is my pledge today, is that I'm going to introduce you and to make sure that the knowledge of what you are doing and how we can plan for Swifts and the breeding of Swifts, even at early architectural stage and right up into the building stages. So that's a pledge from me today. I'm really sorry I can't stay. I'm heading to Galway for another event, but you have an amazing conference ahead of you. I know Deirdre's going to talk maybe a bit about the programme. You have the programme with you. But I'm so struck as well by all the artefacts, by the people I saw this morning that are wearing Swift t-shirts and earrings, and the artwork and the beautiful symbolism that's around us. And thank you as well for bringing the good weather. I wish you a wonderful couple of days. May it be really productive. Gur míle mágaibh agus tá súilgam Gominnig sibh antainmh as an cúpla lá. Thanks very much. I'm going to hand over to
Okay, that's really wonderful to get that pledge from Dr. Flynn. That's really fantastic news. So thank you so much, and thank you for coming along. So I'd now like to introduce Dr. Deirdre Garvey. She's the Head of Department of Environmental Humanities and Social Sciences, and she's the head of the Green Campus at ATU Mayo and a huge supporter of our Swift project. It wouldn't be where it is today without Deirdre. So.
Thank you. Minister, distinguished guests, on behalf of ATU Mayo and ATU Mayo Green Campus, I'd like to welcome you all to the 8th International Swift Conference. A céad míle fáilte go dtí an códal idirnáisiúnta cuimhnú na gabháilán cuithe. As Linda has said, I'm head of Department of Social Sciences and Environmental Humanities. Our department is a transdisciplinary department with what we describe as a holistic approach to understanding human interactions with the natural, social and cultural environment. I'm also very privileged to be chair of Green Campus with a very committed staff and student base, but also a very hard-working Green Campus coordinator, Anne Wiseman, who's also here today. Linda was describing to the Minister about how she started observing the Swifts here on the campus in the office that she was in the courtyard, and she could see the Swifts each summer. I happened to be in the office right beside Linda, so that's how I became involved. And I would just say we're really so honoured to be hosting the conference, and I really have to acknowledge the commitment and the passion of Linda, who was our Green Campus founder here and also who started the Save Our Swifts project here on campus in 2012. I think this is, as Orla said, it is truly a citizen science project, and it shows how individuals can really make a difference and how we can really lead by our actions here locally. I'm also delighted this year that with the support of ATU, we've upgraded the project with new nest boxes, new cameras, live streaming, data storage for research capability. And if you have a chance to have a look in reception, if you haven't been up there yet with the cameras, you'll see that the Swifts have never looked so good in that high definition camera. And I do want to acknowledge the support of the IT department. These projects are complex, they take quite a bit of time, and I think the IT department may not have been aware of what a Swift was before the project, but they certainly know now a lot about Swifts. So who would have thought, 14 years ago later, that we would actually be welcoming all of these Swift conservationists here from 16 different countries. And really, the next few days is really to shine a light on the Swift conservation work that is happening worldwide, and to learn from each other as well, and to also renew ourselves, because this is hard work, and I know there are a lot of challenges for all of you, I'm sure that we've also experienced over time. And hopefully that you renew yourself in this beautiful landscape of Mayo, and you will feel that energy through the beautiful music that you will hear also over the next few days. I should also say the weather is always like this in Mayo. So finally, as a regional campus, we're very linked to our community and to our stakeholders, and this conference would not have been possible without really hard work of, as well as the International Organising Committee, the local Organising Committee, and the collaboration of our very close partner and stakeholder, Mayo County Council, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, LawPro, Fáilte Ireland, and of course Swift Conservation Ireland, Swift Conservation Mayo, and the campus support staff and all of the volunteers of staff and students here today. So thank you for coming to Mayo, and thank you for coming to the home of the Swifties in Mayo, and I hope you enjoy your conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. So I'd just like, before I introduce our next guest, Cathaoirleach Councillor Sean Carey, I'd just like to mention a couple of things. I just want to acknowledge Sabine Springer's artwork, because you may not realise that this little handbook that you will have received, she has hand printed all of these, and with great dedication. And inside is a little haiku by one of our guest speakers, Gordon Darcy, and the Welcome Swift is by Sabine as well. So anyway, without further ado, Cathaoirleach, can I invite you to say a few words? Councillor Sean Carey, who's from County Mayo.
Linda. Thank you, Linda, for those that may not understand our native language. Ara a cóla chun the Al McDonald a gcuine úsle go léir. Tá an ahas fehan seo an margin seo I Cathaoirleach ar an law specialty seo. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister, Councillor Al McDonald, ladies and gentlemen, and Dín Úsle, as I called you earlier, which means noble people, and you are very noble people here, and we're delighted to have you in Castlebar and in Mayo today and for the next number of days. So delegates, guests, colleagues and friends, on behalf of Mayo County Council, it is my distinct honour to welcome you to Castlebar for the 8th International Swift Conference. We are delighted to welcome up to 200 experts from all corners of the globe to the west of Ireland and to be hosting the conference here in Mayo at the Atlantic Technology University Mayo campus. Swifts are a bridge between worlds, migrating thousands of miles to return to our towns each May. In Mayo, we take our role as their custodian seriously. I would like to commend the tireless work of Swiss Conversation Mayo and our local community groups, whose citizens' silence projects keep these incredible birds safe. And I'd like to particularly mention Linda for the great work that she does in the projects. And give her a round of applause, please. Yeah. In the early 1900s, Swifts were once recorded breeding in Belmullet on County Mayo's northwest coast, which is my own hometown. Today, the Swifts no longer breed in Belmullet, but we are working hard to bring them back. Mayo County Council have recently set up a built-in nest box project in the new Youth Arts Centre in the heart of the town to help the conversation efforts. So hopefully that will be a success, and I'm sure there's so many people in the community that's hoping that it will be a success. It is with great pride that I can say County Mayo is the first county in the Republic of Ireland to successfully reverse the decline of Swifts and instead grow its breeding population. It is fitting we are here at the ATU Mayo campus. The ATU Save Our Swifts project was the first public sector Swift Next Box project in Ireland, helping ATU Mayo become the first third-level campus to be awarded on Taoiseach Green Flag. We continue to lead the way. Westport Town Hall Theatre is the site of the very first built-in Next Box installation in the Republic of Ireland and is now the home of a thriving colony of Swifts. Since 2014, Swift Conversation Mayo has established projects providing over 400 nesting compartments, both external and built-in, across the county. Over the next 3 days, you will hear presentations on various topics, from avian biology and tracking migration patterns to community initiatives and rehabilitation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank ATU, Fáilte Ireland, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, the OPW, Action for Swifts, and Mayo County Council, and all the supporting agencies and volunteers who make this gathering possible. Firstly, I encourage you all to enjoy the unique hospitality of County Mayo, our vibrant culture, our rich natural heritage, which I hear you will have the opportunity to experience during Saturday's field trips, kindly supported and guided by the National Parks and Wildlife Service. And it's fitting, I think, that Biodiversity Week is running currently and with the last week, and the there is so much interest in the biodiversity, supported by so many groups and the whole community. And it's great to see the enrichedness that's there from all the efforts that's going in there, and look forward to that continuing into the future. It's great to see it between rural dwellers and urban dwellers. Everyone's so much involved in biodiversity, and we hope that that will continue. The flora and fauna is so important, and it's great to see that it's been looked after and thriving. So now it is with great pleasure to welcome you to the 8th International Swift Conference, and thank you very much for attending today. Gurmila Maihig of Galir.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Councillor Carey. That was a really warm welcome to Mayo. And can I just give you one other little gem, just in case you're not aware? So the conference logo is Croagh Patrick, our holy mountain, and it's viewed from Loch Lanna in Castlebar. So if you're staying in Castlebar, you really must go and take a walk. There's a lovely walk around Loch Lanna. And with the weather the way it is, that is the view that you are going to get. So I'm really delighted to welcome Minister Christopher O'Sullivan. We are so fortunate to have a minister who is a bird watcher. That's got to be quite rare. So he is Minister of State at the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, with special responsibility for nature, heritage and biodiversity. Minister O'Sullivan.
Thank you so much, Linda. Geez, you seem really far away, actually. Look, it's great to be here. Can I welcome the Cathaoirleach of Mayo County Council, Councillor Sean Carey, as well as the Cathaoirleach of the Castlebar MD, Councillor MacDonald. I think it's really important that you have your local councillors supporting nature-related events and biodiversity-related events. I think policy-wise and politically, we really need to get behind nature, and it's great to see two local politicians here backing this, and the fact that Mayo County Council themselves have backed it so much. I want to welcome the team from National Parks and Wildlife Service. Hey. Irene especially, thanks for the welcome here today. And I'm really proud of National Parks and Wildlife Service as an organisation. They do extraordinary work. A lot of it goes unnoticed, but trust me, they're a group of passionate people who are just crazy about nature. Thank you, Dr. Deirdre Garvey, for the kind words, and fair play to ATU for getting behind this project as well. It was so refreshing kind of rocking up here and seeing the Swift numbers circling above the building and then going into the courtyard. And inside in the courtyard, the call is amplified. It was actually deafening as they were coming into the nest boxes. But fair play to ATU for getting behind it in such a way. And of course to Linda, you're amazing, the work that you're doing. And I'll touch more on the work of Swift Conservation Mayo in a second. This is great to be in a room. You're my type of people, a lot of bird watchers and bird lovers. It's one speech I think I can nerd out about the 7 species of swift that I've seen in the world. You know, I'm delighted out of 100 odd. But possibly my favourite experience ever was not related to the common swift, but I was down in my home in West Cork, where Eoin is from as well. I'm from Clonakilty, and there's a neighbouring village called Rosscarbery, which is about 20 minutes away. And there was an influx of alpine swifts a couple of years ago in Ireland. So I was driving along. I was specifically looking for alpine swift. I was a traffic hazard. There's no doubt about that, because I was kind of had my head up. And lo and behold, I drove into the square. I looked up, and there was no other swift species around at the time because it was early April and the common swifts hadn't arrived. And I looked up, and circling above me was this giant swift, all pale white belly, pale throat, and I just nearly crashed the car with excitement. But it was extraordinary. But that for me was one that, for about 2 hours, I watched it as it fed just over the street. And people in Rosscarbery were thinking he's definitely lost his mind now. You know, But lots of people rocked up and they were asking questions, and it really got people kind of asking. But they're extraordinary species, mythical species. They're magical. And while us birders are always out there looking for the white-throated needletails and pallid swifts, it's the common swifts here in Ireland that are such a magical story, and that, you know, it's great to bring us back to the bread and butter, which is common swift. They're extraordinary, they're mythical. Summer wouldn't be summer without, you know, a party of swifts just screaming through our towns and villages. They're extraordinary to look at. But unfortunately, and this is something that we can't be proud of here in Ireland or across Europe, we know that they're in sharp decline by about 40%. And that's sad, but it mirrors what is happening with a lot of our bird populations, a lot of our bird species. Most are in decline in some form or another. So we need to act. We need to do something. But Swift Conservation Mayo and Mayo County Council and ATU are proving that it can be done. And quite often, I think when it comes to conservation, especially of migratory species, the kind of easy go-to narrative is, sure, look, whatever we do here is not going to make a difference. There's probably something happening in their wintering grounds. There's probably something happening on migration. Even if we do create the habitats here, they're not going to come. But through the incredible work of Linda and the team, and right across Ireland now, we're seeing that that's actually not the case. That actually, if you do create the habitat, if you do protect the habitats, if you create it, they will come. And we're not just seeing that with Swift. Here in Mayo as well, we're seeing it with Corncrake, where the same argument was made. I remember it's like, it's not intensive agriculture. These birds are in trouble in their wintering grounds. We don't know what's happening down in Central Africa. But actually, a group of amazing conservationists with really incredible farmers and landowners said they get together and they created the habitat. And what have we seen? A 55% increase in corncrake numbers. So it just proves that we can all do our bit. And yes, we have to look after them on their wintering grounds and on migration, but it starts here. So that's Mayo. You've increased the number of swifts and corncrake. So it proves that you can do it. Mayo for Sam. You can. Our international visitors won't get the Mayo for Sam reference, but you can Google that later. So just to say that, as I said, it's not all about the wintering grounds, but your efforts are catching on. And Linda, the work that you've done and the work that Mayo County Council have done is starting to catch on in a big way. I was in Ballyborough in County Cavan. Similar projects going on there. They're installing nest boxes. They're putting out lure calls to attract the swifts in, and it's working. And it's amazing. The tidy towns groups are really getting stuck into this. It's obviously they score higher in their tidy towns marking competition if they get involved in nature-related projects, and swifts are the easy win. And they're not just monitoring them at the nest box, they're actually going out to the feeding habitats over the water bodies to monitor their numbers as well. So it is catching on. I was in Quinn in County Clare 2 weeks ago, where the local churches, the religious organisations are getting involved. They're installing nest boxes, and you have the local priests, like with a pair of binoculars on, counting swifts, using the boxes. So it really is catching on. My hometown of Clonakilty, I'm very proud of the work that they're doing too. The Swift Conservation Group there is only up and running for about 5 years, but they're already seeing a marked increase in the number of swifts. And in Clonakilty, one of the things I'm most proud of is we have a joint mural to the Swift. And you may think that's just kind of a nice thing to have, but actually from an educational point of view, it's so important. Because while we're all attuned to the call of a swift or what a swift looked like compared to a swallow, the general public isn't. So that education piece is so important, because as people walk around their busy days through the town and these swifts are calling overhead, in general people don't notice it, but what we're doing is getting people to look up. And that's such an important educational tool. And that brings us on to Mayo ATU, and you mentioned those nest cams. The nest cams are so important, access to them, to actually see the bird in the nest, see how they feed their young. It's all education, and people, it's that saying, Attenborough saying, if people don't know about nature, they won't care about nature. And the more people who care about nature, the more people who want to protect it. So I think that's extraordinary. So you have the shift from I'll call the older people in the tidy towns groups, who are doing incredible work in conservation of swifts, but it's great that we have young people too. I'm not sure if the young scientists group from Ballinrobe are here, maybe not, but it was great to see the Young Scientists Award and the recognition for the work that the kids at Ballinrobe are doing in relation to swift conservation, and that what they did is they measured the weather versus frequency of feeding, and they just did a correlation, and it was an incredible piece of work. But also Jarek Majkusiak, his results in terms of the results of nest box is so important. So there's extraordinary work going on. This species is on the way back. We can replicate what's been done here right throughout Ireland. And I think that, importantly, has to be the next steps. What do we do next? Government have to play their part. There's no doubt about it. We can't, as a state, just leave it all to the groups and the voluntary groups on the ground. We have to support it. And we do through National Parks and Wildlife Service and funding. And as I said, I'm proud of the work that they do. But perhaps we need a policy change. Mayo County Council, through, I suppose, encouragement from Linda, have now made it pretty much policy that new buildings, new builds, and any retrofitting that they're doing will include either Swift blocks or Swift nest boxes. And that's a simple thing to do. It doesn't really cost anything. In fact, I'd say that a brick with a hollow in it would cost less than the full brick. So, it could be cost effective. So I don't see why we can't do that. I'm open to the idea of legislation. Absolutely, I have no problem with it. But I actually think legislation in this country takes so long to get through. It's years by the time it's introduced to get through. I think a very quick policy change could be the difference here. So that if local authorities, my own local authority in Cork, for example, and other local authorities just took on what Mayo is doing, and in any new builds, any new social housing, any new public facilities, that they just put in a few nest blocks. And to see the success in the courtyard out here, to see the amount of nest boxes being used is extraordinary. It proves that it could work. So I won't keep you any longer. I want to thank you so much for the invite. I'm going to stay on for the next couple of speakers, but I would, trust me, right, today I have to go back to Leinster House, to Dáil Éireann, to Parliament, all right? I'd wait for it to stay here for 3 days and listen about Swifts. There's no comparison. And especially the next speaker, I want to give a shout out to Eoin Warner because he's from Cork. That's number one, but his documentary, Ireland's Wild Islands, if you haven't seen it, please tune in. I've always felt there's something special about islands, and as fellow birders, you will know that islands, from a bird watching point of view, are incredibly special, especially from migratory birds and rare birds. And he really captured how unique islands are in his documentary. Give it a watch. His next documentary, I think, is Wild Connemara. I'm wondering when he's going to do Wild West Cork. Is that next up? That's where we're both from, by the way. But really looking forward to that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening, and go on the Swifts. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, I think that's the most inspiring talk by a minister I've ever heard. Thank you so much, Minister. It was fantastic. So I'm going to invite the Cathaoirleach and the Minister to take a seat down below so that they can enjoy the talks. And I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Deirdre Garvey, who's going to chair the morning session, and she's going to introduce Eoin Warner to you. So thank you very much. And also, one last thing, I really would like to acknowledge all of the Swift heroes from around Ireland that are here today, because there are lots, and I hear my name being thanked and everything, but really there's so many people working throughout Ireland. So a big thank you as well. So over to Deirdre.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Minister. I should say, as a birdwatcher and conservationist, you have found your spiritual home here in Mayo. So I'm really honoured. We're so delighted to have Eoin Warner here today. Anybody from Ireland will know Eoin Warner's work. So for those of you who are here from outside of Ireland, I'm delighted to welcome Eoin. So Eoin Warner is a wildlife documentary presenter in both the Irish and English language, and he has presented some of Ireland's most foremost documentaries in recent years, several of which have been awarded national and international media prizes. So his Irish language documentaries include Orla Flynn, Wild Ireland, and Ulan Glas agus Fásach Bán, a two-part series on wildlife of the Burren. He has also co-presented the English language documentary A Wild Irish Year, and recently completed an internationally broadcast 3-hour series titled Ireland's Wild Islands. So Eoin is currently working on a natural history documentary on Connemara. And just, Eoin, as you know, from the Minister, Eoin is also from Cork, outside Bantry in West Cork, and he now lives in Galway. They also say that Cork people don't leave Cork, but you're proof of that, Eoin, as well. So he was an avid free diver and loved nothing more than to be in or on the sea. And Eoin has travelled extensively in the wildest places from Botswana to Antarctica. and has a keen sense of our ecological responsibilities. So I'll now hand you over to Eoin, and just to highlight as well, Eoin's new two-part series will start on RT1 6:30 this Sunday, Wild Connemara, so just to watch out for that. So delighted to welcome Eoin Warner.
Thank you so much for the very warm welcome from everyone. It's great to be here and great to see so many excited faces for the few days ahead. Yes, I am a Cork exile, and I'm going to start actually with a very short story, if I may, about West Cork growing up that might resonate with you, Minister. So I grew up in West Cork in the late 70s, early 80s, and at the time rural Ireland was a very different place than what you see today. It was quite a depressed economy. There was a very oppressive recession sitting on top of the country over that decade, and most of our young people had to leave to get jobs at the end of schooling. And so there wasn't a huge amount happening in rural Ireland and in rural West Cork at the time, except at the end of April and the beginning of May every year, Reeves Fun Fair used to come to Bantry Town. And this was like Las Vegas arriving in rural West Cork. And for the weeks before them arriving, it's all we spoke about in school was, what rides were you going to go on, how often you were going to go, how many days. And it was just a really exciting thing to happen. So I lived about 3 miles outside the town, so I'd be in town during the daytime, but I was never there in the evening times. But I remember well being at Reeves Fun Fair, and it was just mayhem. There would be hundreds of children running all over the place. There was the dodgems, we called them bumpers. There was a waltzer, there was an arcade, there was a thing for children to go around, like the smaller ones. There was candy floss and ice cream and music and sirens and craziness. And my abiding memory of being at Reeves Fun Fair was standing in the middle of all that and just looking up at the Swifts, looking up at these screaming parties who had freshly returned, cutting the sky up and just being so enthralled and bewitched by these beautiful birds. But the saddest thing for me at the time was when I would look around me, I was the only one looking up. Nobody else could see the Swifts or knew that they were even there. And that, unfortunately, is one of the biggest things that affects most of our society today, is that we don't see the nature above us. We don't see the nature under our noses. And that's why you guys are so important, because you are the ones who are inviting us to look up and see this amazing bird. You are the ones who are going into our schools and educating our children to tell them about the wonders of this bird and to look up. You are the ones to go to our local authorities and to businesses to consider this bird and when they're doing building projects, and to incorporate their nesting boxes and to look up and think of this bird. And so over the next few days, you have this amazing opportunity to listen to great speakers, to collate all that knowledge, to cross-pollinate and collaborate with each other, and bring all that information back to your communities and get them to look up and consider this amazing bird. So for that, I'm so excited for you, and I'm so thankful. I wasn't invited here to speak and reminisce about my childhood in West Cork. I was invited to speak about some of the documentaries that I've been involved in the last few years. And the documentaries, that most of the ones that I've been involved in are being produced by a company called Crossing the Line, and they're based in Westport, about half an hour from here. And they're making amazing documentaries, international documentaries all over the world, and many of them you would be familiar with. But the great thing is that they're bringing that know-how and technology back to Ireland and making documentaries about our wildlife. And for many Irish people, and even for me growing up, when we thought of wildlife or wildlife documentaries, we thought about faraway exotic places like Papua New Guinea, Africa, Antarctica. But I believe our wildlife is just as wondrous and just as beautiful as anything that we find all over the world. And the reason that these documentaries are so important is to give Irish viewers an opportunity to see what we have on our doorstep and to see how beautiful and wondrous it is, and to invite them to spend time in nature, to consider them, to fall in love with them, and hopefully protect them. As Minister mentioned earlier on, what David Attenborough said, unless you see things and people are aware of things, they're not going to protect them. So I often do talks in schools, showing children about our wildlife. And I always show this video clip, and it's a collage of different things. And I explain to the children that all of these things you're going to see now, everything was filmed here in Ireland. So it's called This Is Ireland. So I hope that gives you a flavour of some of our wildlife. I can take very little credit for that work. The real heroes of natural history documentary makers are the men and women who capture that footage out there and work very closely with National Parks and Wildlife to do that. The next piece I'm going to show you, I'm going to say very little about it, except that it had a huge, probably one of the greatest moments, not only of my filming career, but of my life. And it happened just off the coast of Clare, near Lahinch, back in 2021. And I'll just let it play, and it should hopefully speak for itself. We have quite a complicated relationship with basking sharks, or complicated history of basking sharks here in Ireland. As you can see, the photograph on the left was taken at Kim Bay in Achill Island, which is just northwest of here. And in Achill Island, the largest basking shark fishery in the world occurred during the 1950s and 60s, with over 10,000 individuals slaughtered for the oil in their livers. And that fishery eventually collapsed, with the last shark being killed in 1984, when the population of the basking sharks also collapsed. And over the last decade or two, the numbers have slowly been increasing again. And now we are able to witness some of those that tourist behaviour in the autumn off the coast of Ireland. And it was only in 2022 that the Irish Parliament gave official protected status to the basking shark. So it just goes to show the importance of conservation work and the impact that it can have. Another area that Irish people have had a complicated history with is trees and woodland. So Ireland, when humans first came here about 12,000 years or so, it was believed that the country was covered with 80% of trees. And ourselves as a people, we describe ourselves in our own language as the Gael, and that is the root word for Gaelic and Gaeilge. And it's an old Irish word meaning forest dwellers. So we as a people saw ourselves in association with trees. And we even, some of our earliest laws were there in the Brehon laws, which were extant in Ireland until the 16th century. There were specific laws about protecting trees. We saw the value still in them for our communities and the greater community around us. Unfortunately, through agriculture and through colonialism, in 1922, when the founding of the Irish Free State, there was 1% left of original tree cover in Ireland. And that is pretty much the case in terms of the original temperate rainforest in Ireland. There is another 15% or so of plantations, but that's what they are. They're plantations of trees that come from the Pacific Northwest of America, Sitka spruce, and they're planted as a crop, and there's very little biodiversity to be found in them. But there are some very great individuals and organisations like Owen Dalton doing a lot of work in bringing awareness to this temperate Atlantic rainforest. Organisations like Home Tree are doing a lot of work in working with communities to plant more of these areas, but also to give land over to them, but also to try and save what we already have. And National Parks and Wildlife are doing tremendous work battling against rhododendron and overgrazing in some of our woodlands. But that 1% of woodland was so important as a refuge for some of our woodland animals, and this is one of them. And this footage was actually filmed in Achill Island as well as part of the Wild Island series. Sometimes with these documentary pieces, it takes years to try and capture the behaviour you're wanting to get, but we managed to film this. This beautiful mother stoat offered this footage to us over 2 days in the spring. You probably noticed the mad head of hair I had in that. That was filmed during COVID, and I couldn't get a haircut. My wife said I looked like Bobby Ewing from Dallas back in the day, if you're old enough to remember that. I'm conscious of the fact that I've shown you an Irish mammal and an Irish fish, but I'm in a room of birders, and so it's important to show you some birds. So, as you're aware, islands, and the more remote they are, the more I suppose biodiverse and in terms of species, that the less they become because of our isolation. And Ireland is no different. After the last ice age, with sea level rises, very few species managed to make it across compared to what you have on the mainland of Europe. But one thing that we are very fortunate to have as an island nation is a very indented coastline and many islands, and many of which of those are uninhabited. It's making it the ideal places for seabirds, and many of them are of global importance. So this next piece I'm going to show you is of a really iconic group of islands off the southwest of Ireland. They're called the Skellig Rocks off the coast of Kerry. And Skellig Michael also has a very important role in terms of our human heritage, as there was a monastic settlement on it. So I often see it as Ireland's Machu Picchu. And it's a very spiritual place, but a very, very magical place as well. And when we were actually filming this sequence, we were lucky enough to get stormbound on the island for 4 days, 4 nights. It was the best experience ever, but my wife didn't agree. But anyway, I'm going to show you this. It's a little longer than the other ones, but it's a really special piece of footage, and I think you'll enjoy it. So I hope those few videos have excited you about Irish wildlife and given you a flavour of what we have here, and we're working so hard to protect. You're so spoilt on Saturday to be hosted by National Parks and Wildlife to be brought to some really interesting sites, which will be great. But there's one other species you'll probably see over the next few days, and they're red people. And don't be alarmed, it's just Irish people who become sunburnt. We get very excited when the sun shines and we kind of forget ourselves. So, just want to finally finish up and say thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. I'm super excited for you over the next few days and the knowledge sharing that's going to happen. And I would just hope and thank you for the work that you're doing, and that you will continue the work of getting people to look up and to consider the swift, this beautiful bird. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. I'm sure I'm like everybody else. We were in a trance there. I could have watched it all day, but we move on. Our next speaker, I'd like to invite Tara Adcock from Birdwatch Ireland. Tara has a BSc in Geography from Trinity College and an MSc in Animal Behaviour and Welfare from Queen's University in Belfast. And she joined Birdwatch Ireland in 2018, working mainly on wading birds and seabird conservation projects. And in 2023, Tara took on the role of Urban Birds Project Officer. And within this role, she has worked on a range of projects, including swift surveying and breeding habitat conservation projects with councils and the Office of Public Works. So I'd like to invite Tara to join us from Birdwatch Ireland.
Hi, how's it going? It is a massive, massive honour to be here and to be on the ATU campus. The work that Linda here in Mayo and Brian Cahallan up in Northern Ireland did, I know inspired my colleagues to begin a lot of the Swift work that we've been doing in Birdwatch Ireland over the years. It's genuinely a huge privilege. It's also lovely to follow such an inspiring talk from Eoin about what we have in Ireland, and also kind of, I suppose, inspires us to think about what we can have in Ireland with the right measures and the right funding and so forth in place. So I'm here to talk to you about the work that we've been carrying out in Birdwatch Ireland over the last approximate decade, surveying swifts initially with the Office of Public Works, and then following on from that, county and city councils right across Ireland. So they're two separate surveys, but broadly the aims of these surveys are very similar. The aims of the surveys are to inform conservation measures for swifts across Ireland. And we're doing this through identifying the swift nest sites where they are, and then subsequently protecting those nest sites, hopefully protecting those nest sites in the survey areas or within the survey sites. Education and community engagement is a huge part of the work that we do, so educating OPW staff about the swifts that are on their sites or the swifts that could potentially be on their sites, but also educating the communities within the county and city council work that we do as well to create swift champions, so local advocates for swifts and people who are really inspired to install nest boxes of their own, to install nest bricks and to advocate for swifts where those those nests are under kind of threat. Off the back of the surveys, we make recommendations for swifts and for wider biodiversity as well. And these recommendations include the installation of swift nest box and brick projects. So we've worked with council and city council, county and city councils and the OPW to install these nest boxes at sites. So I'm going to very quickly touch on the council swift survey work that we've done. We've been carrying this out since 2017 and we've carried out 25 surveys to date. 2 of these have been resurveys. The number of swifts in different areas varies dramatically. So from lows of about 48 swift nests found in South County Dublin up to a high of 386 swift nests in County Meath in 2024, so rivaling County Mayo here as well. We also did 2 resurveys, and the resurvey data was particularly interesting. So Jarek, who's going to come on after me, carried out the Offaly resurvey in 2023, but the first survey that we did ever for swifts for county councils was in Offaly in 2017. We found 165 nests right across the county. In 2023, Jarek found 162 nests across the county. So overall, nest numbers remain pretty steady. However, this masks quite a lot of swift nest site loss between the survey years, with about over half of the buildings losing a portion or all of their swift nest sites between 2017 and 2023. Go to Meath in 2019, 260 nests were found. This jumped hugely. By 2024, 386 nest sites were found. So something good is happening in Meath. Some of this is down to the fact that the surveyors do know exactly where to look, so they spend less time walking around towns and villages, more time finding nests in 2024. But some of it does seem to be down to natural population growth. So there's a town in County Meath, Oldcastle. One of the shops there had 5 nests recorded in 2019. By the time 2024 came along, 20 nests were found. So that's a huge increase. That has to be due to natural population growth. The other thing is that the vast majority of the buildings that had swift nests in 2019 in County Meath still had their swift nests in 2024. Maybe the numbers had changed, but those buildings were still being used by swifts. And all of the towns, bar one in County Meath, the numbers of nests jumped between survey years, which differs with Offaly. So something really good is happening for swifts in Meath that we just need to drill down and figure out what it is. One of the things that the field workers are doing when they're walking around recording swift nests is they're looking for the they're looking for the building types that swifts are nesting in. Very broadly, we're looking to see, are they in privately owned properties, so properties, residential or commercial properties, or are they in heritage, religious or public buildings? And our assumption is if they're in heritage, religious and public buildings, that they're generally safer, those nest sites are less prone to renovation than if they're in commercial and residential buildings. Overall, what we found is that across the survey years, 58% of nests are recorded in private properties, which is kind of what you'd expect. You'd expect a higher proportion of nests to be in private properties because there's a lot more private property stock out there, while 38% were found in heritage, religious and public buildings. Some counties, however, that kind of masks the fact that in some counties, the number of swifts using these private properties is an awful lot higher. So for instance, we surveyed Fingal in County Dublin last year, and 95% of the swifts are in residential properties there. So it's really, really important that we're protecting our swifts at our heritage sites, at our religious sites and at our public sites, and that we are expanding the populations at these sites as well, which is why we are absolutely delighted to be working with the Office of Public Works, who manage over 2,000 buildings across the Republic of Ireland, including heritage and modern buildings. They also get thousands of tourists coming through some of these heritage sites each year, so this gives us a remarkable opportunity to educate the public about swifts and for the tour guides and the people on the ground to kind of weave the story of the swift into their guided walks and really inspire people as they visit these heritage sites. There's also huge potential at these sites to keep swifts in them. The swift is this remarkable bird. It is very much a part of our national and our natural heritage. And there's something so evocative about seeing it at a heritage site over a castle or a monastic site. And they just feel like they should be there. So there's huge potential to kind of inspire people by showing them swifts in these heritage sites and for retaining them in the first place and building in swifts into these environments as well. So we began the Swift Heritage Site surveys back in 2015, so about 10 years ago, and we started surveying the modern estate buildings, so Garda stations, etc., in 2025. And our methods are pretty straightforward. We take a look back at previous Swift Nest site data to see if there's any records of swift nesting in these sites. We carry out 2 to 3 survey visits between June and July. And we photograph, we document all of the confirmed nest sites, and we provide these to the Office of Public Works. We then provide recommendations to enhance the sites for swifts, but also for wider biodiversity as well. To date, we've carried out 50 surveys of 48 OPW sites. 16 of these sites, about 35%, support nesting swifts. Unfortunately, only about 4 sites support more than 10 pairs of swifts, and the vast majority of sites held only 1 to 2 pairs. So pretty low numbers, unfortunately, but an awful lot of work that can be done to boost those numbers. 9 of these sites have been resurveyed through the county surveys and through OPW surveys. And what we found is that swift nest numbers increased at 2 sites, both in Kilkenny, so Kilkenny Castle and St Mary's Church in Kilkenny as well. They decreased at 6 sites between survey years. And unfortunately, at 4 of these sites, we've actually lost the swift populations. And there was no change in swift numbers at 1 site, but just a word of caution that there was only a year between survey dates, so it's not really, it's not a long enough survey gap, really. So this is Tom Moore. He's listening to the chicks who are nesting in what we always reckoned was the lowest swift nest in all of Ireland. They're in Clonmacnoise. So this was surveyed in 2015. It was the first site that we ever surveyed for the OPW. It was then resurveyed in 2017 during the county survey, and that swift nest is still going strong, still the lowest swift nest in all of Ireland. But then by 2023, the swift nest had unfortunately disappeared, which means that the skies above Clonmacnoise have fallen silent for swifts, unfortunately. In better news, this is St Mary's Church in Kilkenny. In 2018, there was 1 nest recorded here during an OPW survey. In 2021, 12 nests were recorded. So some of this is probably down to the fact that the surveyor in 2018 might have been a little bit unlucky and they missed some nest sites, but they couldn't have missed 11 nest sites, 11 additional nest sites. So there does again seem to be some natural population growth occurring here between survey years, which just goes to show that given the right conditions, swifts can bounce back. One of the things that became abundantly clear is that the OPW very much needs a centralised database of all known swift nest sites so that they can make decisions, make informed decisions when carrying out any management works. So they commissioned us last year to map all known swift nest sites in the Republic of Ireland, and we used the National Biodiversity Data Centre data, which I know Swift Conservation Ireland, among others, has contributed to. We used Pork Webb's data as well from Carlow. The Carlow surveys are carried out there, and we used our own OPW and County Council survey data as well. And one of the things that they asked us to do is highlight those OPW buildings within the modern estate and heritage sites which have records of swifts in them. And we found that there were 8 modern estate buildings, so 8 Garda stations, etc., that had swift nests in them, and 29 heritage sites that had records of swift nest sites. And this data has been integrated into all the other key OPW data sets to make the information available to the wider organisation so that the right decisions can be made. The value of this work was shown just this year when Roscommon Castle came up for renovation. And when they plugged it into the system, it flagged that there were 8 swift nests found here by ourselves back in 2020. So off the back of this, Roscommon Castle is to be resurveyed this year in advance of works. So this work can really inform management decisions regarding nest site protection and possible expansion of nests at the site, and that's what we'll be doing this year. Another thing that the OPW asked us to do, and that this database allows us to do, is to highlight the nest sites within 250 metres to a kilometre of the suitable OPW managed buildings. And when I say suitable, I just mean not like a cairn or a motte or anything like that, an actual standing building. And the aim of this work is to facilitate the strategic placement of swift nest box and brick projects. With over 2,000 buildings, it's really important that the OPW has a little bit of guidance as to where best to place, to strategically locate these nest boxes. And what they want to do, initially at least, is to put the nest boxes in the proximity of existing swift colonies, particularly those which are housed in residential or commercial properties where they're a little bit more vulnerable. It also guides decision-making regarding site selection for OPW Swift surveys. So it kind of helps them to tell us where to go and survey each year. The final thing that we've been doing over the years with the OPW is staff training. So we produced, we started the Swift initiative with OPW back in 2015. We've also been carrying out staff training on site for guided tour, for all staff, essentially, all ground staff. And the aim of this is to provide staff with the expertise to integrate swifts into guided tours. These people are on the ground, they're interacting with people every day in these absolutely stunning landscapes oftentimes. People are already psyched up about what they're seeing, they're already kind of sold on the Irish myth, and bringing in the idea of swifts into that, I think, is really evocative and really gets people fired up about what they can do for swifts as well. We're also providing in-house training to architects, so to guide them on nest site protection and how to install nest boxes on existing buildings and how to build in nest bricks into all new builds. So over the years, we've taken numerous lessons from the work that we've done. And one of the things that we found is that these surveys, they are essential to collect baseline data on nesting swifts so that those nest sites can be protected in the first instance. But it's no good just collecting data and then having it sitting on a shelf. It needs to be available to all decision makers at all levels within organisations. These resurveys are really, really crucial to understand how swift populations are changing over time, the impact of any renovation or kind of modernisations, and to guide kind of management decisions. And this site-level management at OPW sites, it's really, really necessary. It's really necessary that when this data is given to the OPW, that the OPW then takes it and kind of decides how best to integrate swifts in and to keep the swifts that are there in these buildings. there is a huge opportunity to enhance and to develop the Swift colonies at these sites through the provision of nest boxes and nesting bricks at new builds. Nest boxes and nest bricks, they're never going to make up for a natural nest site. So retaining that nest site in the first instance is really, really important. But you can then add to your colony by adding in nest boxes and nest bricks. Education and outreach is a key part of Swift conservation, and there are huge, huge opportunities to further embrace Swifts as an integral part of the heritage of OPW sites. Like I was saying earlier, the Swift is an intrinsic part of our natural heritage. And we want to make sure that it stays entwined in our built heritage as well, which is why we're delighted to work with the OPW. So just to acknowledge all of the people on the screen, particularly Lorcan Scott, Katie Goodwin and Elizabeth Lynch from this year for all of their help. And a massive thank you for listening to me. And I'm looking forward to talking to many of you over the next few days. The Q&A was at the end. Perfect. Are there any questions? Okay.
So, yeah, okay. At the end, yeah, I thought that, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tara. Thank you very much. Now, our last speaker before the coffee break. So, I'm delighted to welcome Jarek Majkusiak, and particularly delighted to welcome Jarek because he is a graduate, both his undergraduate and graduate degrees from ATU Mayo here. And Jarek's master's degree by research focused on the breeding biology of the common swift in Ireland. And that project involved watching 30,000 hours of camera footage. So he's been involved in swift research since 2019 and currently works as an ecologist. So delighted to welcome Jarek back to the campus today, and we're well on time, Jarek. So
thank you. Does that mean I have a bit of extra time? Yes? Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. I was talking recently to my niece who's obsessed with the Merlin app, and she asked me, do blackbirds have their own conference? And I said, as far as I know, I don't think so. So it's great to be able to speak to you guys today. This is the third time I'm speaking at the Swift Conference, so it's a real honor. And this time I can sort of welcome you to where this sort of the Swift research that I conducted over the last number of years took place. So my name is Jarek Majkusiak, and today I represent Swift Conservation Mayo, Atlantic Technological University, and also Tobin, who I work for as ecologist / ornithologist, and who are also one of the sponsors of this conference. So let's begin the presentation. And I'm extremely proud to represent my campus here. This is where most of my work took place. And this is like a really nice sign, because if you guys look at the Swift here at the wall, to your left, this is sort of where my office was, sort of behind this wall. So this wasn't planned as far as I know, but it's just like a really nice sign. So I am just an alumni today, but I still feel a strong connection to this place, and I keep returning because the Swifts are just bringing me back. So the title of my presentation is The History of the Common Swift Research Project at ATU Mayo Campus. But maybe instead of talking to you for 15 minutes about the graphs and the statistical tests that we conducted, I feel like this is better to sort of tell the story of this research. I think this will be a bit more compelling, and while obviously the statistical tests and the graphs and the figures do have their place, but I think if we tell a nice story, that's the thing that will inspire people to really take action and sort of look at our work in a different way. So thank you for allowing me to practice telling that story. And I think it's important that we begin telling this story in 1886 when a district lunatic asylum was funded. And yes, this is the place we're here today. And it's probably right around the same time after the first patients moved into this building. The Swifts moved in soon after, because there is still some natural nests in this building up to date. Then, after 130 years of this building serving its role as a psychiatric hospital, this building was converted to college campus. Now, I know what some of you might say, nothing really changed, right? So then, a local biodiversity celebrity, Linda Huxley, worked in GMIT, and he used to sit in the courtyard and enjoyed watching swift acrobatics in the summer months. However, around the same time, she noticed that the numbers of swifts began to decline. And so, if you ever met Linda, from the moment that when she realized that something needs to be done to the moment when something was done, it was just a matter of time. So roughly around the same time, GMIT Mayo Campus joined the Antashka Green Campus program, and in 2012 the campus was awarded the Green Flag. And part of that process was protecting the natural nest of the swift that are in the building. So in 2012, the first 3 Schwegler boxes were installed, providing 12 cavities for the prospecting swifts. In 2014, the first swifts moved into the project, and obviously they were called Chris and Linda. In 2014, Linda founded Swift Conservation Ireland, which is a volunteer-led forum that provides advice and on the methodologies to help the swift. So it's not an NGO, and while the Swift Conservation Mayo is a volunteer group focused on the swift conservation efforts here in County Mayo. In 2015, Swift Conservation Ireland published this beautiful leaflet, which all of you guys have on the table today, and it just provides some really nice and helpful information on how to help the swift. And from Linda told me recently, 10,000 copies of this leaflet was printed so far. So just an incredible thing. Now by 2016, this is a busy project already. A lot of the boxes are already occupied. Chris and Linda Huxley and others realized that there's an opportunity here to really find out what's happening in those boxes, and the cameras were placed in each of those boxes. The stream was set up. There was already some analysis of the data was taking place by Linda and some students at GMIT, but not only, because Saoirse Swanton was sort of like the first success of this research project, and because he ran his own student project, and he was nominated for the BT Young Scientist Award. And the fun fact that Saoirse is actually a son of Deirdre Garvey, who introduced me here just a few minutes ago. In 2018, additional 6 cavities was installed, bringing the total numbers of cavities to 18. And also by this year, this project was already producing a huge amount of data. So the idea was to bring a master student to sort of take over the analysis of the data. And that's where I come in early 2019. Now, the idea for this research was to provide the first evidence of the breeding biology of the common swift in Ireland, something that was sort of understudied so far in this country. The supervisors of my research were Fergal O'Dowd, Dr. Yvonne McDermott, and Dr. Eoin O'Connor. And from Swift Conservation Ireland side, it was Linda and Chris Huxley. And one of the internal examiners was Dr. Killian Roland, who's also present here today. So also in 2019, another gem of a colony joined our project. And this is a private home of John and Georgina Young up in Maguire's Bridge in Northern Ireland. And this place is fantastic. This is just someone's house. And John installed, at the time it was 30 boxes. Now it's over 40 boxes, all of them with cameras, all of them with beautiful notes. And John is a policeman, so his notes are just incredible. And his project was started roughly around the same time as ours. So his notes were dating back to exactly the same year when our project started. So it just gave us like a beautiful, beautiful data that really complemented our data here for the research. So everything was going great, you might say, until COVID. We all remember that. However, we didn't stop. If anything, we actually benefited from the lockdowns because I had way more time to watch more videos. I had, and also we improved the methodology like by a lot. We were able to focus on the things that we didn't plan originally. I was only the very few people allowed to enter the building in that summer because I had to do some maintenance on the equipment. And wandering completely empty halls of this building was an eerie experience, especially considering the history of this building. And I even experienced another type of lockdown on my own because one day I stayed watching the Swifts for way too long, and I got locked in, and I set every alarm in the building, which was very embarrassing. But yeah, it was just a part of the adventure. So after watching 30,000 hours of footage from the nest, we had enough data for our research. And it wasn't easy to put it all together. As you can see on this image, I've printed this wall of graphs and figures, and just to see if I can see some patterns. And you can see that my supervisors checked in on me every now and then. This is Chris Huxley on the picture. By 2022, the thesis was finished, still with GMIT logo, however. In 2022, this GMIT transitioned into Atlantic Technological University, and that's the year I graduate. So just to provide you some results. And now I can talk to you about the graphs and figures. I already mentioned it, but I won't at this stage. There is a time and place for it, I think, and it's not today. And instead, I just give you a bullet point summary. So this was the sort of like the first study of the breeding biology of the common swift in Ireland. So it just provides like a really nice baseline data on it. We studied our productivity of our swifts, and we found that our productivity here at the west of Ireland is actually very similar to what we see in the more temperate regions, such as Mediterranean. And this was also the very first study to quantify the breeding frequencies of the feeding frequencies throughout the entire breeding season. And what that means is that we didn't just watch 5 days and we estimated the rest. No, we watched every single minute of the breeding season for 19 breeding attempts. Okay? And we also compared that the results of those feeding frequency results into the weather, compared to the weather events. But if I could summarize my research just with one sentence, it would be: the common swift is well adapted to breeding in challenging climate of the west of Ireland, as long as suitable nesting opportunities are provided. I presented the results on the survey of the study in Segovia and in Trieste, and I will also publish 2 peer-reviewed papers, and with another one will be published probably at the end of this year, and another maybe 1 or 2 in the works. And I have a couple of print copies, so if at any point you see me, and if you're interested in taking a copy with you, I can organize one. Now, but we didn't stop. In 2024, Swift Conservation Mayo conducted a county-wide survey of all towns and villages in the county. We were looking for the natural nests. We also inspected all of the external boxes, and we also inspected all of the built-in boxes in the county. And just the brief results, it turns out that about 2/3 of our swifts already in the County Mayo already nest in their natural setting, which is the cavities and man-made structures. But as you can see, already 1/4 of our swifts nest in the built-in swift box projects, with the remaining 14 in the external boxes. So overall, County Mayo recorded 307 nests. Okay. So some of you might think that the population isn't as big. The guys in Toledo are probably rehabbing more swifts at the time, but it's still a really good achievement. And if you can see that the biggest dots are actually Castlebar and Ballina, And fair enough, they are the biggest towns in the county, but also they have the largest amount of the built-in Swiftbox projects and also the external boxes. And these were the real stars of the show, let's put it this way. They were the real deal when it comes to the Swift conservation in Ireland, in our opinion. And some of the projects, such as this one, which is St. Mary's National School in Ballina, 19 out of the 24 cavities were occupied in just 3 years after they were installed. And since then, I went, I sort of inspected this site last year, and it's even more. So it's just an amazing. That's like what, 80 something percent. That's just a really great results. And this is in Castlebar. This is a new swimming pool. 19 out of 23 cavities were occupied in 2024. So just incredible. And this is likely the future of the Swift conservation in Ireland, in Ireland. Likely the future of the Swift conservation in Ireland, in our opinion. These projects are like an equivalent of giving a Swift family a penthouse in Greystones. It's really what they need, because if you were able to ask the Swift family what do they need, they would tell you a hole in the wall with enough room for a family of 3. That's what we know, and that's what we like, and that's what those projects are providing. We also tested thermal imaging camera to be able to survey the external Swift boxes at night. So the camera that we used was very basic, but it still gave positive results. We were able to see that there's something in those boxes when we were there at night, and then we returned during the day just to confirm that if they are in fact occupied by the Swifts. And the project, the Swift Conservation Ireland, and our research were featured on RTE News. And this is another fantastic story. We had the students from Ballinrobe Community School running their own research project based on the footage from the colony in Maguire's Bridge, and they also studied the effects of the weather on the Swifts. And they also entered the BT Young Scientist Award, and they won the best project in biology and ecology category. Okay, so on the picture you see their fantastic science and chemistry teacher Barry O'Rourke, and the students Luke Molloy and Emma Sweeney and Emily Butler. Regrettably, they're not here today, but if we can just give them a small. And 2026 is the year of big changes. These are new boxes, providing a bit more space for the Swifts. We also have brand new cameras. We have a live stream, brand new live stream as well, which is available on YouTube. There it is. And I'm coming up to the end of the presentation, and I would just like to mention about the impact of this Swiftbox project, Swiftbox project here at the ATU, and just the work of Linda Huxley and others that promoted Swift conservation in Mayo and beyond. In 2012, there were only 2 Swiftbox projects in the country. But that's only 14 years ago. There was this project here, and there was another project not far from here in Tubbercurry, put up by Michael Casey. I don't know if Michael is here today. Yeah, perfect. Hello, Michael. And it's just amazing that since then, there is Swiftbox project in every town and village in Mayo, and the situation is pretty much the same all over the country. As my previous speaker Tara mentioned, Birdwatch Ireland is the largest NGO, environmental NGO in Ireland. They're actively supporting the Swifts. Tidy towns love those Swiftbox projects. They're just so easy. It's just such an easy project to do. And there are multiple groups formed around the country to focus on protecting the Swifts. The Facebook groups are just exploding with asking for social media. You know, it plays a huge role. And with this project and with this project here, we're sort of putting together this stack of evidence, a massive stack of evidence, and I believe we have a great story that can inspire sort of like just the final step of the Swift conservation in Ireland, which is, possibly the legislation. So I would just like to take this opportunity to say that there is still an opportunity here for future research. There is probably opportunity for a PhD students to come in and take over the project and just continue it. And if you like us to know more about the ideas that we have for the future research, please approach us at any time. Or even if you just want to, us showing you the Swifts that still live in the building, we'd be more than happy to do it. Okay. Not sure what's happening here. Next slide. Here we go. Just the last slide. I just want to just some acknowledgements. I want to thank the ATU Mayo Green Campus, all the fantastic staff here at ATU Mayo Campus that helped us help the project over the years. I'd like to thank the Mayo County Council, Heritage Officer Deidre Cunningham, who supported the Swift for many years, and now Biodiversity Officer Sheila Murphy. And I would like to say thank you to John and Georgie Dayong for their generosity and hospitality. And I would just say thank you to you all.